In the previous exercise, you saw how we could serve up a style sheet depending on what device was viewing our HTML layout. I used the example of a screen device and a print device. And of course, it was all about that media HTML attribute, media equals screen or media equals print. And the entire purpose of the previous tutorial was to get you used to the idea of working with multiple style sheets and serving up style sheets depending on what's being used to view our layout. Well, in CSS3, we can apply style sheets depending on the display width. So this is sort of the natural progression here as we work our way towards media queries. So of course, smartphones, iPhones, tablets, and so on all have different display widths. So this means that we can create different external style sheets for all of the different devices that we have that we want to target and serve our page to. We can have our code automatically detect the device's width and then serve up an external style sheet for that device. I hope that makes sense. Now, the example that I'm going to show you to introduce you to this concept is really, really simple. All we're going to be doing is changing background colors, really basic. We have the rest of the course to put together beautifully constructed style sheets that are going to be served up to multiple devices. Okay, so here we go. Here's what I'm going to do. Inside my project files folder, we have once again, another subdirectory, this time called multiple style sheets, multiple resolutions. Go ahead and pop into that guy and grab the HTML file that we see there, index.html. Open this guy up both inside your coding application and also inside your web browser, if you will. Now, I'm going to show you this guy inside our web browser. This is what he looks like here. Give me just a second. And what's going to happen here if I grab this guy's bottom right corner and I start scaling him, a whole lot of nothing happens, as a matter of fact. The layout is not adjusting at all. This, by the way, is what's referred to as a fixed width layout, hence why we get this horizontal scrolling that's happening here, and you can see that the layout is breaking up towards the top there, and so on. So there's really nothing happening here at all. And of course, if I go and take a look at the code, let me flip over to my coding application. Up towards the top there we have the very basic reference to the external style sheet, styles.css, just like we had at the beginning of the previous tutorial. Okay? As a matter of fact, in the previous tutorial, we had something kind of similar to this. Give me just a second to rebuild it for you. It said link and then rel equals style sheet, and then it had type equals, and then in quotes, text/CSS, something like this, right? And then we had the reference to the style sheet. Now, in my example, I had screen and print. So let me do screen here, .css. And then after that, we had that media attribute. So media equals, and then in quotes, screen or print. Okay, so this example that I'm going to show you in this exercise is really similar, but it's going to build on what we learned in the previous exercise. So this time, rather than using screen.css, check this out. I'm going to use low.css, as in low resolution. And instead of media equals screen, check this out. You might want to get your notepad ready. Here we go. I'm going to go screen and then in brackets or in curvy parentheses, whatever you want to call them, I'm going to say min-width, like so. And then full colon space 320 px for pixels. All right? So what this code is saying is, all right, if the device being used to view the HTML document is a screen device, and his minimum width is at least 320 pixels, then automatically serve up a file called low.css, which subsequently you and I haven't created yet, but we will in just a second. Now, I'm going to build on this idea. Give me just a moment. I'm going to grab all of this code that you and I have just inserted, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it out 2 more times, because what I want is low, medium, and high resolutions. So the first guy is going to be our low resolution. The second guy is going to be our medium resolution. So I'm going to make some changes here. Instead of low.css, I'm going to go medium.css, like so. And then his media attribute is going to read screen and min width 768. There we go. pixels. All right. And then the very last guy, he's going to be our high. So I'm going to go high.css, and his media attribute is going to read minimum width 1200 pixels, like so. Now, where did I get 320, 768, and 1200 pixels? That goes all the way back to our discussion on targeting devices and the common denominators that we discovered there. Okay, so I'm just carrying that forward through into this example here. Okay, all right, now be sure to save up your work. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go all the way back down to my project files folder. And inside our multiple resolutions folder, we have styles.css. I'm going to rename this guy from styles.css to low.css, like so. And then what we need is we need 2 copies of this guy. If you're on the Windows side, I believe you have to copy and paste this guy. Here on the Mac, what we can do is we can select him and hit Command D. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that twice, so I have 2 copies. And of course, I'm going to go and rename them appropriately. Medium.css, and of course, high.css. Let me get that locked in there. There we go. Perfect. Okay, now take your 3 external style sheets, low, medium, and high, and open them up inside your coding application like so. Give me a second here. I'll put these in some kind of order here for you. Low first, and then medium, and then high way over on the right-hand side. Let's start off with low. So I said earlier that the example that I'm going to give you is going to be really simple, really basic. We have the rest of the course to do all our crazy designs and crazy formatting and so on. So inside low.css, I'm going to go and look for my header. He's down on line 6, and he has a background right now of solid black. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change his background color from solid black to solid red by changing the first 0 in the RGB color values to 255. Okay, go ahead and save up your work. Let's head over to medium, and I'm going to repeat this very simple example that I'm giving you by once again finding the header on line 6 and changing his second RGB value to 255. So his background color is going to be 100% green. All right, good stuff. One more to go here. High, down to line 6 for the header. His last RGB value we're going to change to 255 for a solid blue. Okay, good stuff. All right, make sure all of your work is saved up. Let's head back to our browser and refresh Control Command R. What should happen is the header across the top should change to solid blue. By the way, if it does, then that means that the coding that you've created towards the top of your HTML file is working correctly. If it's still solid black, there's something wrong inside your code, and you might want to pause the video and compare what you have to what I have here in front of me. Okay, now I'm going to head back to my browser, and what I'll do now is I'll start scaling my browser. And as I start scaling the size of my browser window down, eventually what's going to happen is I'm going to get a solid green background on my header, like so. So this means now that I'm now looking at an HTML document that's under the control of medium.css. Again, a very basic example, but we can see that the functionality is there. Scale this guy down even further, and eventually we get a solid red background on our header, meaning that this particular version of my HTML document is now under the control of low.css. I know that the rest of the layout kind of breaks and it's kind of messed up, and we still have the fixed width and so on. Again, I really got to reiterate this. We have the rest of the course to fix all this stuff, right? The point is that we have our 3 external style sheets functioning and automatically serving up depending on the width of the browser or the width of the display that's being used to view our HTML file.